In honor of the upcoming holiday of Easter, I will be reviewing a book that revolves around the said holiday, as well as some elements that are related to it, such as the Easter Bunny and candy. The book that I'm going to be reviewing today is called Garfield, the Easter Bunny. It was written by Jim Kraft, and no illustrator is credited for this book, but it states that it was created by Jim Davis. So I think it would be safe to assume that Jim Davis has illustrated this story himself. I'm sure most of you watching this video are familiar with the character of Garfield and the entire franchise, but for those of you who aren't, here's a short summary. Garfield the cat is one of the most well-known cartoon/comic strip characters known to mankind. He was first created by cartoonist Jim Davis in June of 1978. The comic strip followed the adventures of the said character, who is a fat and lazy cat, and a bunch of characters as well, including Odie, his canine friend, John Arbuckle, Garfield and Odie's owner, Nermal the Gray Kitten, who is a self-proclaimed world's cutest kitty cat, and lots of other characters, too many to name here. The story begins on the night before Easter. John Arbuckle, Garfield and Odie's owner, taking out 3 Easter baskets out of a big closet. Garfield, being the greedy one, is unhappy with how small his Easter basket is. John explains to Garfield and Odie that when they leave the baskets out overnight, the Easter Bunny will come and fill them with all kinds of candy, leaving a very nice surprise for the 3 of them when they wake up on Easter morning. As John says this, Garfield thinks to himself that when John and Odie wake up the next morning, he will have eaten all the candy from their baskets. Typical Garfield. While I do think that this is a nice way to begin the story, it left me wondering, if the Easter Bunny is meant to fill baskets of children, wouldn't it make John too old to believe in the Easter Bunny and receive candy from him? Does the Easter Bunny even leave candy for cats and dogs as well, considering that chocolate that's in almost every Easter candy is poisonous for them to eat, making it pointless? There's no clear answers to either of these questions, but I like to think that John Arbuckle, like myself, is just young at heart and likes to have fun in traditions like receiving candy on Easter. I like to think that the Easter Bunny is so generous that he believes that even pets should receive candy on Easter as well. John and Odie go to bed while Garfield decides to stay up and see the Easter Bunny and collect the candy. Hours pass by throughout the night, and Garfield gets more and more impatient. When the clock strikes 2 in the morning, Garfield sees a shadow with big floppy ears and gets excited, thinking it's the Easter Bunny. However, it turns out to be just Odie, who turns out to be up just to make sure that Garfield doesn't eat all of their candy. Very smart move, Odie. You know Garfield incredibly well to stay one step ahead of him like that. After waiting another hour with the Easter Bunny nowhere to be found, Garfield figures that the Easter Bunny must be lost and needs help. So he and Odie creep out of the house and begin searching for the Easter Bunny. Garfield relies on Odie's sense of smell to help track down the Easter Bunny, but after an hour they are unsuccessful in finding the Easter Bunny. Garfield wonders where he would be if he were the Easter Bunny. His question is answered by someone making a snide comment. This somebody turns out to be the Easter Bunny, who sits beside a street lamp, exhausted and behind on his deliveries. I must say, for an Easter Bunny in the Garfield universe, he has a pretty generic design in the illustrations of this story. To me, he looks just like any other anthropomorphic animal in that world, just purple colored. But I guess Jim Davis wanted to keep the Easter Bunny simple for the sake of simplicity of drawing him more than once in the illustrations throughout the book. Garfield expresses his impatience to the Easter Bunny, who turns out to be pretty irritable from the physically hard labor from his job. Garfield blows off the Easter Bunny's complaining and states that the Easter Bunny's job looks easy to him. In response to this, the Easter Bunny decides to let Garfield and Odie take over his job for the night by delivering the rest of the candy to all the kids. He even gives Garfield a pair of rabbit ears to wear, which I think Garfield looks silly in, and gives Garfield a basket of candy, telling him to deliver everything by morning. With confidence, Garfield tells the Easter Bunny how easy the job will be for him. In response, the Easter Bunny smiled and closes his eyes. By that reaction, I would say that the Easter Bunny certainly has a plan up his sleeve for Garfield and Odie. You'll see later in the story. Garfield and Odie arrive at the first house to deliver candy to. Immediately, they get stumped. How does the Easter Bunny get inside people's houses, especially when all the doors are locked? Odie suggests a chimney, but Garfield responds with, "Wrong holiday, Odie," which I think is a nice little gag that the author stuck in this situation. But at the same time, not bad of an idea either to try that. They finally find a very small basement window that was open. Unfortunately, much too small for Garfield to fit into. Odie struggles to help Garfield get inside, and with all his might, Odie pushes Garfield through the window and into a laundry basket in the basement. Garfield's delivery attempt at this house proves to be unsuccessful, as it's too dark in the basement to see where he's going. And to make matters worse, he steps on a toy car, sends the candy and Easter eggs scattering all around the room, and worst of all, he has made so much noise that he woke up the people who lived in that house. Luckily, he was able to get out of the house with the candy and eggs before anyone can find him. Things get even worse for Garfield and Odie when they run into a pack of angry, ferocious dogs in the neighborhood. The dogs give chase and Garfield and Odie end up running for their lives through the yards in the neighborhood. All the candy flies out of the Easter basket. Eventually, the dogs give up chasing them and eat all the candy that Garfield has dropped. As I mentioned before, Easter candy often has chocolate in it, so I can imagine that it won't end well for those dogs, whether the candy has chocolate or not. Garfield and Odie collapse on the ground, exhausted after that incident. They realize that it was almost morning and decide that they need to come up with a fast way to deliver the candy to all the houses in the short amount of time they have. Garfield comes up with an idea. What if they leave piles of candy on the doorsteps of people's houses, ring the doorbell, and the people will find the candy and fill their own baskets with it? Garfield and Odie put this plan into action, and it works like a charm. While I think this is a nice practical idea, I don't think it would work out too well in real life. Some people are heavy sleepers, and the doorbell would not wake them up, while others would not be happy to be woken up by the doorbell at such an early hour, and not find the candy piled up in front of their doors at all. Garfield and Odie are very pleased with how successful their deliveries were, but realize that there's no more candy left for their baskets. Their disappointment is short-lived, though, when the two of them go home and find their baskets overflowing with treats, with the Easter Bunny greeting them happily. The Easter Bunny tells them the two of them deserve the reward after having a rough night. He goes on to say that he followed Garfield and Odie around the whole night as they tried to deliver the candy and wanted to show Garfield how tough of a job he has. Garfield agrees with this as he starts to pig out on his candy. I'm sure the Easter Bunny also wanted to teach Garfield a lesson about his greediness for candy and to not be so demanding as well. The Easter Bunny offers for Garfield and Odie to help him out delivering candy next Easter since they did such a good job at it this time. After all the two of them went through, Garfield declines this offer, stating that from that day on, the only bunny he wants to see is a chocolate one. Looking at this illustration, I wonder, did the Easter Bunny fill John's Easter basket as well? It seems to be missing from this illustration, only showing baskets for Garfield and Odie. John only appears on the first page of this story, and we never see him again for the rest of the story. I'm guessing that was an error on the artist's part. The end. My final thoughts on this book. This story certainly captures well the events of Easter from a child's perspective in terms of the Easter Bunny and getting candy and baskets from him. Garfield is his usual selfish, greedy self throughout this story, and considering how the plot of this book went, I think it was really necessary to make Garfield this way in order for the story to work. Seeing Garfield and Odie take on the Easter Bunny's job and encountering many difficulties before becoming successful is a nice idea for a story in the Garfield franchise, although it is another concept that has been covered quite a few times in other holiday-themed stories, movies, etc. It seemed a little bland for my taste, but it seems to work well for this story, considering that it revolves around the holiday of Easter. And candy is an essential element of Easter when you think about it from a kid's perspective. I can't help but to notice that the Easter Bunny, as a character in the story, seems to be quite a crafty character. He is introduced in the story as an overworked, resentful character, but in the end he proves that he could handle his job of delivering candy to people just fine, as stating that he has magical powers, which answers the question of how the Easter Bunny can get into people's houses in ways that Garfield and Odie otherwise couldn't. It seems to me that the whole idea of the Easter Bunny being overworked was just a setup for Garfield. By having Garfield take over his job, I think the Easter Bunny wanted to teach Garfield a lesson about not being greedy and demanding for his Easter candy. A lesson that, knowing how Garfield is, Garfield will soon forget. Magic certainly makes the Easter Bunny's job a complete breeze, and I can see how hard of a job it can be for anyone, not just Garfield and Odie, to take on and accomplish in the amount of time given. So I think it was an interesting idea to have the Easter Bunny be that way he was in the story. What do I think of the illustrations in this book? As mentioned before, I can only assume that it was Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, who made the illustrations in this book, as there are no other artists credited. The illustrations are gorgeous and well designed. They capture the key elements of the story well as the different perspectives and emotions of the characters as well. They really give you a good feel of being in the Garfield universe. So, nice job on the illustrations. In the end, would I recommend this book to others? Yes, I would. I wouldn't say it's among the absolute best that the Garfield book series has to offer, but it's charming in its own ways, especially when it comes to the elements of the Easter holiday that kids can relate to the most. I'm not sure how well this story would go over with kids who wonder if the Easter Bunny is real or not, as I don't think it would give them a straight answer to that. So if you're looking for a book to read to kids to get them excited for the holiday of Easter, I would say that this is a solid pick. If you can find it, pick it up and see for yourself. I hope you enjoyed my review of Garfield, the Easter Bunny. And if you have any suggestions for future reviews for my channel, feel free to leave them for me in the comments below. Please comment, share my video, and subscribe to my channel as well. Have a nice day, everyone, and thank you very much for watching.